Hello and welcome to the 12th episode of the Bucket Lounge Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Garcia. Going solo today, as you can tell by the nice quality. I'm usually on my laptop when I have a guest on. It's been about 3 to 4 weeks since we last dropped our episode, but not much has changed in the aspect of like trades or rumors going down. We have had great performances. We've had someone drop 70. We've had a 60-20-10 game. We've had LeBron dropping 47 at 47 years old. It feels around this time, there's always big performances. I know last year we had a stretch where guys were dropping 50. Kyrie was dropping 50. Klay just dropped 50, which was good to see from Klay Thompson. But look, December 15th was when players who signed in the past offseason were now eligible to be traded. And it's been about 3 weeks, and we haven't got anything. The trade deadline this year is February 9th. So we're about a month away. There are two teams that can dictate the outcome of this season. The first team we'll talk about, the Toronto Raptors, who sit 12th in the East at 16-21. Not that far from the play-in and not far from the 8th seed. But look, Pascal Siakam has been playing at an all-NBA level. Fred VanVleet hasn't been. He was an all-star last year, less than a year ago. Hasn't been playing well. I think he is one of the worst field goal percentage shooters in the league. It looks bad right now. Gary Trent is another guy who's a great shooter, great defender, gets a lot of steals, deflections a game. One of their biggest pieces that no one talks about besides Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby. This is a guy who I think around the league can get a lot of interest, and they could get a lot back for him as far as first-round picks, good young players in return. They have a lot of questions to answer. What I would do if I was in charge of the Toronto Raptors, I would sell high on Pascal Siakam. The Toronto Raptors are not a team that makes crazy trades. Pretty much the only trades they have made that have been really like out of the spectrum, like, wow, this is a big move, is when they traded for Kawhi Leonard. And that's pretty much it. I think they should do the reverse of it. Trade Pascal Siakam. There's a team in Phoenix that I think Pascal Siakam would really complement Devin Booker and Chris Paul. He allows them to play smaller, which they like to do sometimes. They can be very flexible. If they can get DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson, and multiple first-round picks, a lot of first-round picks, that'd be up to them and see how much they can get out of it. I would love to see a trade go down like that, or even out west. Also, with the Memphis Grizzlies, maybe you can get back a Jaren Jackson Jr. who's been playing like probably the defensive player of the year, or you can get a trade center around Desmond Bane, or you could just get a lot of first-round picks and some of the young guys on the bench, Zaire Williams, Brandon Clark. I think the Phoenix Suns trade would be perfect in my eyes. I think also if you were to try to get what you can from Fred VanVleet, he's on an expiring deal that he can opt into for next year. If you can get maybe a first-round pick out of him, a young rotational player, go ahead. If I had to guess, if Fred VanVleet were to be traded, there are two teams I see him going to. Number one, the Washington Wizards. The Wizards have a lot of expiring contracts in Monte Morris, Will Barton. Who else? There's someone else. I think Rui Hachimura is going into the fourth year of his deal where he can be up for a contract extension or will be a free agent in the offseason. Guy who hasn't really played much, maybe you take a swinger on him. Maybe you can get a guy like Danny Avdija. Or maybe if you play your cards right, you can get a guy like Johnny Davis, a first-round pick in this year's draft who really hasn't played much for them and doesn't really look like he's fitting into what they're doing there in DC. So get what you can for those two. That's my advice. Guys like Gary Trent and OG, you can get a lot out of them, but is it worth it? The Toronto Raptors are a team that if they are gonna give away their best player and their second best, I wouldn't say second best player, but a guy that's been a pillar in that franchise in Fred VanVleet, I'm sure they keep the rest of the people there too and keep some continuity and build around that foundation. So I say get rid of the two heads of the snakes in Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet. Gary Trent, OG, and Scotty Barnes is what you need to build around. You have your first-round picks. There are a lot of good players in this next year's draft. If they were to blow it up now, they would be on pace to get either the fourth, I'd say, or through 8th seed. Last time they had a 4th overall pick, they got Scotty Barnes, who, yes, he hasn't had a great season. But look, this player development is not someone getting better year after year. Guys can start off really good, regress a little bit, then keep going back up. You allow him to flourish more with the ball because at times he does look timid. He looks like he's not comfortable with scoring, or he's like, all right, I'm going to defer to Pascal, or I'm going to defer to OG, or Fred VanVleet's going to bring up the ball, or Gary Trent's going to get shots. Allow him to control the game more, have the ball in his hands a lot more. Look, you can get a guy like Nick Smith in next year's draft, who I think is going to be a stud. Nick Smith, Brandon Miller, who's a 6'9" point guard, or small forward, but he plays like a point guard in my eyes. There's guys like Dariq Whitehead, some of the Thompson twins. Amen Thompson is no joke. So there's some good talent in next year's draft where you can be like, hey, look, we don't have to necessarily tank for the 1 pick and be in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. Although it would be nice to have Victor on your team, or Scoot at that, because they could really use a guy like him. You try your luck, see how deep of a pick you can get, and build around what you get from there. And I don't think anyone will blame them. And look, Toronto, I think they would understand. And yeah, I think you've hit your ceiling with this team. I mean, look, if you want to complement what you have in Pascal Siakam and OG and Scotty Barnes, one of those 3 players has to be traded. I mean, if you want to keep Pascal and Scotty, you have to trade OG. But OG has, I think, potential. If he were to go to another team, can just flourish and break out. Maybe you get a lot for him. But it's just like, will that put you over the hump? Like, will that really take you to the next step? I don't think so. Maybe you just retool. Keep retooling and start off kind of fresh. You already have a good young foundation. Build on it. Next trade that I think should be sellers at the market at the trade deadline, the Chicago Bulls. We mentioned this before. My co-host, Maurice Palma, he mentioned it too. He mentioned it at the beginning of the season. The Bulls are going to be one of the teams that should be selling. You're also 11th in the East. They're 16 and 21, just like the Toronto Raptors. DeMar DeRozan has been their best player. It's plain and simple. We assumed that it would be Zach LaVine, but look, DeMar has just been killing it. And you did give up. Okay, let's go in order of let's go in the first couple orders. So look, you traded for Nikola Vucevic, then you trade for DeMar DeRozan. You signed Lonzo Ball. You gave up a lot of assets to get these players. You gave up 2 first-round picks for Vucevic. You gave up 2 first-round picks for Vucevic, 2 for DeMar, and you gave up. Did they give up any picks for Lonzo? It's kind of blanking on me right now. But look, you gave up some assets. You can sell high on DeMar DeRozan right now and get some of the draft capital back. Also, the same thing. You could probably get something for Nikola Vucevic as well. Lonzo Ball, sit him out. Look, he's not going to play. There's not really any value to him. He's on a big contract. I would sit him out. See what you can get for DeMar and Nikola Vucevic. You probably can get a lot of assets back for them. Look, your pick is top 4 protected this year. I would be aiming to keep that pick if I were the Chicago Bulls. You have guys like Pat Will and Ayo Dosunmu. Those are 2 guys like, hey, look, DeMar, LaVine, we'll shut down LaVine. DeMar's out of the picture. Vucevic out of the picture. Hey, let these guys ball out. These guys can ball out. You have players on the bench too. Alex Caruso. I love Alex Caruso. I think he's a really underrated role player. Hey, you talk to the Warriors. Hey, look, you guys are trying to go all in. Hey, Caruso for Wiseman. Let's see if we can get that done. There would probably have to be some picks around that, but look, Wiseman's value is pretty low as it is. If you were to make that kind of move, you'd have Pat Will, Ayo, and James Wiseman just balling out the rest of the season. 4 months of the season, like, hey, do what you got to do. Make mistakes. Let's see what you got. Okay, cool. Do that. This opens the door for them, like I said, getting a potential saving their pick, having a top 4 pick. And like I said, this draft class is loaded. You have more pieces to build around. This also makes a guy like Zach LaVine extendable. It might sound crazy, but look, if I were the Chicago Bulls, you just sign him to a crazy 5-year deal that doesn't look like it's heading in the right direction. Knee problems, great young player, but hasn't shown signs of taking you to that next level. If you can look, the New York Knicks had a chance to get a top shooting guard in the league last summer. I don't think they passed up on it twice. They have the draft capital for it. They can give you a lot of picks. Granted, they might not give you their own picks, but they have a lot of first-round picks that they can give you. Some with some light protections, heavy protections. Maybe you can sneak in one of their own or 2 of their own. But look, hit up New York. Hey, they got contracts that are expiring, like Fournier. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Derrick Rose. Wouldn't it be nice to have Derrick Rose back in Chicago? So if I are the Bulls, man, look what you can do. You didn't strike. I don't think they struck out. Like, they hit their ceiling with the squad they had. Cool. You hit your ceiling. It was fun for the fan base. Okay, what's next? I think if I was a Bulls fan, I'd like to see them blow it up too. Because it's one thing to be good and not winning games than it is to be like, hey, we're just letting guys play while we're getting ready for next season. Okay, cool. You have something to look forward to as a fan. So if I were the Bulls, start off with DeMar. See how much you can get back for him. Vucevic, you'd be lucky if you can get something out of him too. I think you can, especially because he's on an expiring deal. I would really love to see Io and Pat Will just take over. If you can get a guy like Wiseman for Alex Caruso and Javonte Green, something like that. It'd be nice to see like a little development for the rest of the season. Let these guys play out and save your pick. Wouldn't it be nice to save your pick? As a guy who watched the Lakers a couple years ago when they were tanking and they were top 4 protected every year, it just kind of made it was bad, but it was a good bad feeling where it's like the anxiety would kick up every time it was the draft lottery and like the Lakers got the 4th pick instead of losing their pick at 5, 6, and 7. So if I were the Bulls, that's the game plan. That's what you should be heading for and looking towards. Third topic we have, it's not going to be a long topic, but there was a report that came out. Well, look, Christian Wood for the Dallas Mavericks has, at first it was a little shaky, it was a little rocky, but look, he's starting to figure things out. Jason Kidd finally put him in the starting lineup. They're 7-1 when he's in the starting lineup, averaging 18 and 8 a game. I believe he's averaging a career high in blocks as well. He became eligible for a contract extension up to 4 years, I believe $73 million a year. And a report came out that said they're unlikely to give him an extension, which means they will look to trade him by the deadline. Which if I'm Dallas, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, if I'm a Dallas fan, I'd be like, what are we doing? You finally got a guy. Look, you lost Jalen Brunson, your second leading scorer last year, because you didn't want to give him a team-friendly deal in the offseason and the early of that season. You have the opportunity here again, too. And in a small sample size, it's been working out with you guys. Luka's been having some of his best games. They're finding a little rhythm. Look, you might just have to thug it out and pay him. Look, if it doesn't work out this postseason, you're like, hey, that we shouldn't give him that much money. Look, you can package that up, and as years go on, more future picks become available to you to trade. You have contracts like Bertans, Reggie Bullock, Maxi Kleber. You got some guys that you could package and get another player. So pay the man, because you don't want to go through what you just did with Jalen Brunson, especially with something that looks pretty good. Look, you still have slots available. If I'm Dallas, that should be something that I should take care of right away. They might be hesitant on him. I'm not sure when the deadline is for this extension to be made. But look, make him happy. Don't shop what you have, because you traded a lot of pieces to get. It wasn't really much pieces. It was the end of their bench. But you made a trade to get him. Keep him. See if you can just pivot in another direction where it's like, hey, can we package up? Our best young asset is probably Josh Green. Davis Bertans, and whatever pick you can get. Go get a guy, like I said, Fred VanVleet would be a guy. I think Fred VanVleet would be great for this Dallas Mavericks team. A 3-and-D essential point guard who can play make a little bit and take the load off Luka Doncic, where it allows you to play. I think VanVleet can fill in that Jalen Brunson role where it's like, hey, I can be that secondary playmaker, whether I'm coming off the bench or right alongside Luka. We've seen VanVleet in the finals. We've seen him in the playoffs. He can make big plays. He's also had some stinkers, but look, I don't think he's played with a guy like Luka Doncic. Kawhi Leonard, yes, but that was a couple years ago before the pandemic. So if I'm the Dallas Mavericks, pay the man and look to complement those two. Don't just look to keep complimenting Luka, because at some point you're gonna have to look. How can we get this team to play without Luka Doncic? Because if Luka Doncic was not on this year's team, they would be a bottom 5 team. Plain and simple. This team would be a bottom 5 team without Luka. So don't mess up, Dallas. You messed up once last season. Learn your lesson. Pay the man. Doesn't work out, package him plus whatever picks you can give up or whatever assets you can give up, and figure out then. But right now, get that taken care of. Last topic I want to get into. So look, the Atlanta Hawks was a team that I said before last offseason was like, hey, they're a two-way playmaker away from being a really, really good team. Travis Schlenk and Landry Fields. Travis Schlenk came from the Golden State Warriors dynasty with Bob. Why am I forgetting the GM from Bob Myers? Okay, so he was part of the dynasty run where they got guys like Draymond. They complemented the Warriors team with some vets, and they went on a big run. Trae Young is kind of people compare him to Steph Curry. I don't compare him to Steph Curry like that, but I see where it's coming from. I see how they wanted to play off ball with him. I thought they were a two-way defensive playmaker. away from being a serious contender in the East. But look, they did it in a way where they got a point guard instead. They got another primary ball handler, and it's been disappointing. And large part of that is due really to Trae Young, man. We've had a lot of reports where Trae Young has been infused with the team, or the team doesn't like how he's playing, or Nate McMillan has beef with Trae Young. And it was reported last week that Nate McMillan was seriously considering stepping down from being the head coach of the Atlanta Hawks. And he came out in a press conference and he said nothing. He didn't say anything disputing that report. Yeah, I'm going to consider retiring after this season. That's pretty wild. If that doesn't speak volumes to you, I don't know what will. Because something's clearly going on. And if you think about it, Nate McMillan was the replacement for Lloyd Pierce, who got fired a couple seasons ago. And they had a big run where it's like when you fire a coach, the team gets amped up and they start going on a big run, kind of how the Brooklyn Nets are doing right now. So it's kind of been it's passed its course. I just don't see him like, look, you get rid of Nate McMillan, what is that still going to fix if you bring in another coach? I don't really see it. They had a guy in John Collins where it's like, hey, this guy's been in the trade block for the past 2-3 years. They haven't traded him yet. What do you make of this situation in Atlanta? And look, this might be the early breadcrumbs of the next superstar wanting out, which could be Trae Young. And look, if I was at Atlanta, look, Trae Young has how many years on his contract? About 4 to 5. I'm not trading Trae Young. But if it comes to that, you do have a backup plan where it's like, hey, DeJounte Murray is here. We can run a defensive lineup with him. Whatever we get back for Trae Young, which would be a lot of pieces. But if I was in charge of Atlanta, which they have had some front office stuff going on where it's like Travis Slank was in charge, now Landry Fields is in charge, and they're going in different directions, which doesn't look good. That's not really a good thing. So if I was Atlanta, it's gonna come to the point where you're gonna have to let go of Nate, because you're not gonna trade Trae Young. You're not gonna trade DeJounte Murray, who you gave up a lot of picks for. You could trade a guy like Clint Capella and salvage what you can get from him and start Okongwu and have Okongwu fill in those minutes. DeAndre Hunter hasn't taken the jump that you wanted him to take, especially for that contract he was given. John Collins, what can you get for him? He's on a big contract too. So more than likely, it's going to start off with the coach. But look, they need to make a move. I think they need to finally get rid of John Collins. And whether that's getting pennies on the dollar for what you think he can get you, do it. Sometimes that can make a really big difference in just a team environment. You lose one guy, you're like, damn, like that guy, it sucks not having him. But now we got to move on and learn how to build without him. So they need to make a move. Would I say make a move before you fire Nate McMillan or let him go or he resigns? I don't know. You just have to see how you want to play with this team, because they started the season off like, hey, Trae's going to be like a Steph Rowe where he's playing off the ball, catch and shoot, running off screens. Did that for like the first 5 games of the season, and it slowly progressed to him back getting the ball the whole time. Every time down, it's either a shot for Trae or an alley-oop. That's pretty much how it's been. So they have questions to answer in Atlanta, but my answer would be, hey, look, figure out how you want to play first, make the trade. Then if that still doesn't work, go ahead and get a new coach. But that's going to be it for today's episode. I went solo today. Hopefully next time I have some guests with me. Let me know what you thought about some of these topics. Who do you think should be the biggest seller at this year's market? Maybe it's a team that I didn't even mention on this podcast. Maybe it's a team like Charlotte or a team that's underwhelming. There's plenty of teams out there that are looking, that I believe should sell. And we'll wait. I mean, we have February 9th to wait for. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on some of the biggest rumors around the league, and maybe I can cover them. Thanks for watching. Peace.